Right, so the sports and GT cars take to the circuit, and they will find their way around and sort of peruse the conditions as they move around the circuit back towards the start-finish line. Do it.
Right, so yeah, here we go. So these are drivers in the Spitfire Furniture Sports and GT cars would have now obviously watched the earlier race with the Formula Libras, and the track has changed, not by much though. It's still pretty wet out there. The rain has gone away, so those drivers that do have wet weather tires, I'm sure they would have put them on. If you don't, well, that's what you got, and you got to make it work for you in these conditions.
Right, so having a look at the times that was set in the qualifying, Davy Hubert posted a 1 minute 16. I don't quite think he will reach that pinnacle right now. Steve Humble about a second off him there, with Clinton Thorne in third. Divan Lismore in the Nissan 350Z sits there in P4, and in P5 Yanni Hatzi in the Nissan S14 200 SX. That's the Sylvia. So see how those front five do. Francis Carruthers sits there in P6 in the pull beam. The question is, does he have the gumption to use the power of that pull beam and pull up alongside the likes of Hubert and Humble? We'll have to wait and see. So the cars now making their way out of turn 5 up towards the start-finish line. You see there on your screen now as they're rolling in. There's Humble in the Mallock. And one or two of the 350Zs there. A car going almost off the circuit in the wet. And they'll have to try and keep it all together. So they're getting just a little bit of a touch now. The pace car's out and they're already circulating around the circuit. So we'll have to see how this one... The cars will have to hurry up to meet up behind the pace car, and they get out on their pace lap. They've got a rolling start, and we'll watch them come around.
Another thing is the question that I post is a lot of these drivers that don't have the wet weather tires would have said, okay, listen here, we're not going to come out and play in these conditions, and hopefully when the track does dry out later on, then we'll see some more of them. But right now it seems as if pretty much all of the sports and GT car drivers are out on track, being led around there by the safety car. There's the Wild Rose Gin Porsche of Davy Hubert, another driver that every now and then you'll see him in the iRacing series, in the GT3 series and the iRacing Masters, which of course is connected to the Western Province Sports and GT section. And he is part of that very well-known Joubert family, that Davy Hubert, Francois Hubert, Swiss Hubert, Rainier Hubert, oh jeez, it's so many of them, Peter Hubert. They are all part of iRacing, and Davy out there in that Wild Rose Gin Porsche that's there in pole position down the back straight. And right there with him is an Opel powered Mallock. That's a 1972 car. Dave Abrams told us that. Thank you, Dave. Last year or the year before. And that Mallock is pretty nimble and quick around the circuit.
Right, so the car's making their way down the back straight behind the pace car, and they are getting pretty ready to get this race underway. It's a 10-lap race, so when they go around the corner and the pace car moves off the circuit, as they would relatively say, all hell will break loose, and they will make their way down towards turn number 1. Now, they'll be negotiating turn number 1, whether they've got proper traction. The track is drying up ever so slightly down into turn 1, but there are 1 or 2 wet patches as you enter the corner. I'm not sure what the exit is like. I can't see that side of the circuit. but you'll see on screen it's still pretty wet, so there's going to be a lot of moisture on those tires. And who is going to have the willpower to get quickly down into turn number 1? But WB holds them on as they come up towards the start line. The lights go off, the hammers go down, and away they go down towards turn number 1. WB gets off there pretty quickly. Humble is in there as well. And Divan Lismore sticks his nose there ahead of Yanni Hatsi as they work their way around out of turn number 1, making their way up the Bear Straight towards Quarry Corner. That's turn number 2. And already WB starting to put pedal to the metal, as they say. Working his way around. Divan Lismore sitting nicely there behind the Mallock. The Mallock might get a bit of legs down the back straight, but they work their way through the King down towards Interceptor Corner. That's that sweeping right-hander. They'll make their way up the Malmesbury Straight towards Sorrel van der Merwe Corner. That's that double apex right-hander. And WB is absolutely screaming at this moment in time as he exits turn number 4 and makes his way down the back straight down towards Pertamina Fostron Corner. There is the Mallock up behind him, and then it's Yanni Hatsi that's now got ahead of Divan Lismore with Gary Kieswetter in tow.
Yeah, that's that first group of cars that's making its way out of turn number 5, out of Fostron Corner. And lap number 1 will be in the bag of 10, and it is going to be the Wild Rose Gym Porsche of race leader Davy Hubert that makes his way into turn number 1. And here they come now, racked and stacked under the City of Cape Town Bridge. It is Steve Humble, Danny Hatsi in there, Divan Lismore, and right on his case he's Gary Kieswetter in the Martini Racing Porsche as that group works out of turn number 1.
Well, Yanni Hatsi with a different approach there into turn number 1 goes up on the inside. He notices the dry piece of land and makes full use of it. And he is absolutely peddling that Nissan Silvia. Going now into Quarry Corner. Stonks on the brakes, tries to get Lismore, runs a bit wide. Looks like Kieswetter's going to ride up his inside. Indeed it does. Kieswetter gets through. He gets that GT3 Cup car through there. And he will now push on ahead to try and reel in Yanni Hatsi. And he can see, excuse me, up ahead of him, Steve Humble in the Mallock. Not too far away, but Hatsi really on a fly at the moment.
Right, so the race leader is making his way down the back straight towards turn number 5 into Fostron Corner, but he's all on his own. Here comes a group of cars heading down the back main now. Here comes Yanni Hatsi up on the inside there of Clinton Thorne, heading down into turn, not Clinton Thorne, sorry, Steve Humble, yes, as they exit turn number 5, working their way out of turn 5. Clinton Thorne's not in this race anymore, as a matter of fact. It is a Steve Humble that he just had a good dice with, and then coming in there behind them is Divan Lismore. Under the City of Cape Town Bridge they go. It's Gary Kieswetter coming through, and then it's Lismore as they head into turn number 1. Then Sandro Bakari is the next one, and right behind him is the pole beam of Francis Carruthers.
Well, Yanni Hatsi, who's lying now currently in second place, using the dry patches of the track to his benefit. He's choosing the lines, he has seen the dry lines, and now that rear-wheel drive Nissan Silvia getting traction. Oh, he gets a bit of a drift coming out of turn 2. He stonks on the pedal to try and get some traction towards the kink. And that brings Steve Humble straight back into contention, right up behind him. Humble, I've got a feeling, might be on slicks. And this is why he's moving around precariously, just making sure he keeps it on the straight and narrow. Up behind him, though, Gary Kieswetter in the GT3 Cup car trying to reel in Hatsi, and they work their way out of Sorrel van der Merwe, sweep down the back straight, down towards Pertamina Fostron Corner. And we'll have a look, see if Kieswetter can get any closer. But as I say that, Hatsi streaks away with Steve Humble in tow.
Is now making its way out of turn number 5, out of Fostron Corner. Never mind the leader, never mind Hubert. He's way down the road. Here comes Yanni Hatsi towards us with Steve Humble right in there behind him, being chased down by Gary Kieswetter as they head into turn number 1 in the Martini Racing Porsche. Then there's a little bit of a gap before we see Divan Lasmore coming towards us, working his way under the City of Cape Town Bridge. He's heading into turn number 1, and then we have got Sandra Bakari and Francis Carruthers that are right on each other as they head into turn number 1 as well. Then we've got a little bit of a gap before we see the next car coming. Oh, the guys are going off Francois trouble there in turn 2.
Well, I don't know if they took a very wet line. I don't think there's any fluids or other than water on the circuit at that stage. They took a wide line and they sort of tried to evade each other and both ran off. They're back on circuit and they've lost out. They aquaplaned off, and in that Gary Kieswetter has gone up to P2.
Yeah, Gary Kieswetter has gone up to that second position as they all had issues there with presumably standing water there going into turn number 2. But there is no trouble for the man that sits up front. He's putting laps on everybody already, working his way into turn number 1, and that is Davy Hubert, and he's done a 122.842 as Davy Hubert. He is the quickest driver out there so far.
Well, considering the weather conditions and the surface conditions out there, 122 versus a qualifying time of 116 is absolutely brilliant at this moment in time. So he's definitely got his car sorted out. Chances are he's on a wet weather tyre or possibly an intermediate that he's able to get the traction he wants. Going now on your screen down into turn number 1 is Gary Kieswetter in the GT3 Cup Porsche Martini livery. And he's got Yanni Hatzi there with the Nissan Silvia up behind him. He's got the Japanese flag emblazoned on the side of that car as they work their way up into Quarry Corner. Hatzi taking that wide line. He's got to be careful he doesn't catch that water. And he does it again. He doesn't see the water. The water's lying below his sight line. So he's driving into it. When he hits the brakes, the car just aquaplanes off. But, you know, he can try it for rallycross. It's all good.
It'll work for rallycross, that's for sure. So he's back up again. He's now behind Steve Humble as they exit turn number 3, Interceptor Shoeway Corner, racing up the Tygerberg Straight towards turn 4. Sadel van der Merwe sweep. And down the back main they go. Gary Kieswetter working his way down the back straight, followed there by Steve Humble. And then Yanni Hatzi in that Nissan just chasing them down, trying to get a whole lot closer to Humble as they work their way into Fostron turn 5.
There was a beautiful camera shot coming out of turn 4 of Yanni Hatzi actually drifting it sideways through turn 4. Nice for the viewers to see. It looks quite spectacular. There again, he comes out of turn 5. A little bit of fishtailing on that car. It's a rear-wheel drive car. It's a 200 turbo. So there's a lot of power on the back of that car. And under his car, you see a little flutter, something flailing under his car. I think that is an oil pan. That is the oil nappy, as they call it, which is possibly picking up a bit of air. And that is obviously flailing. Oh, and he's sliding beautifully out of turn number 1 as Hatzi manages to collect the car.
Well, heading towards turn 1, there's a lovely fight here. Sandra Bakari and Francis Carruthers. Carruthers up on the inside. Bakari trying to cover the line as they head into turn 1. Out of turn number 1, they come right now. Carruthers is all over the back of the Sandra Bakari car as they exit turn 1 and work their way. Oh, and somebody, Francois, going off. That's Divan Lasmore going off in turn 2 as Carruthers and Bakari are side by side. Oh, and they spin off as well. That is synchronized pirouetting by both Bakari and Carruthers.
Well, I think possibly Carruthers' car is cut out. There could possibly be some liquid of a different nature down there, but Sandra Bakari, oh, and it also slides around, tries to get it going again. Now, you've got to consider the like of Francis Carruthers, standing in somewhat of a precarious position there. There should be yellow flags waving, which there are indeed, just to warn the drivers. But if you come off a little bit late there, well, you're heading to the scene of the accident, as my colleague Gary Fleming would say. But I think there's possibly something on the surface, or it could just be old fluids drawing up through the tar once again with the water.
Yeah, that could be old oil that's coming through, because the moment the track gets wet, all that comes through. I don't think anybody put any other type of fluid down there, so I fully agree with you, Francois, on that one. There is something that's coming through the circuit over there, and it's caught Carruthers and Bakari out. It's caught a few other guys out. It's caught Steve Humble out. It's caught Yanni Hatzi out. And yeah, as you said, Carruthers' car is standing in a very awkward position.
Yeah, so the race continues. We've got three laps to go. We might just have a safety car condition. They're trying to get Carruthers' car out the way. On screen there goes Hatzi through Sorrel van der Merwe, a sweep. Up behind him, Divan Lismore. And Sandra Bakari behind there with Francis Carruthers stranded somewhat in the dirt. And somewhat a difficult position for Carruthers, though, that he's in with on screen. There's Gary Kieswetter going through. He looks like he's still giving it 10/10ths in the wet as he works his way through. Up behind him, Steve Humble in the Mallock. Oh, and Hatzi getting it totally sideways. He's having an absolute field day out there with the 200 SX. And, well, I think he's enjoying every minute of it as you hear the turbo, 2-litre turbo squeaking past us down into turn number 1. There on screen you see him go down into 1. The picture is somewhat delayed from what we're seeing live outside here. So you see him going through there and he's absolutely enjoying himself.
So the safety car board is out. The safety car will be deployed. I think they are just waiting for Davy Hubert to come into view. The safety car will want to pick up the race leader, and then the race leader will put in there behind that safety car. Divan Lasmore busy making his way past us. Yellow flags are out. The safety car board is out. The safety car is in pit lane waiting to come out. Here comes the Wild Rose Gin car. If that was the case, they've just missed the leader because he's making his way into turn number 1, and the safety car is still standing here in pit lane.
Well, I think at the moment it's a question of a virtual safety car because everyone's sort of slowing down. They're taking it quite gingerly through turn number 5. That's between a Fostron corner. Kieswetter's got the Mallock up behind him. So the safety car has now been deployed.
Yeah.
And not picking up the leader, strangely enough.
Now he's picking up this group of cars that's been led there by Eric Salomon. He's picking up Eric Salomon and those group of 5 cars that's busy working out of turn number 1. So he's picked up that combination of cars. Just ahead of them, way down the road, is Sandro Bakari. Talking about Sandro Bakari as he makes his way into Interceptor corner. It's another driver that loves his iRacing. Does a lot of iRacing Masters and GT3 and sports and GT racing over here. And also does Rallycross. And Francois, he upended his cadet at Rallycross last weekend when Byron was doing the commentary there.
It was Sky Tar.
Correct, yes, quite right. So the safety car is out, folks. Now remember, to my knowledge, these laps count because our monitor says there's one more lap to go. So this race could end under a safety car. Yeah, the checkered flag has been readied. This one will end under a safety car.
Okay, so the safety car is going down the back straight down towards Pertamina Fostron corner. It's got to be a safety car because it definitely won't do the speeds of the sports and GTs like a normal AMG Mercedes or something. It's a little Renault runabout. It might just blow the lights off if it goes any faster. I'm only kidding. But safety first, as they would say. And they work their way now out of Pertamina Fostron corner. And as we've heard, the checkered flag been readied. So the race will be stopped under safety car. Almost a little Taste of Daytona, where they finish the NASCAR Daytona 500 under safety car.
Well, the cars are running through under the yellow, and the checkered flag has been given to the man right at the back of that pack, and that is Davy Hubert, because he is in P1. So he's the only driver that has seen the checkered flag so far. Here comes Sandro Bakari down towards us. So Bakari should get the checkered flag as well, and he does so. Anybody else coming out of turn 5 at this point in time? There's nobody coming out of Pertamina Fostron. So the only two drivers that's been given the checkered flag at this point in time is indeed Davy Hubert and Sandro Bakari. The rest will get the checkered flag the moment the safety car brings them to the line. So as the safety car moves this whole little cavalcade out of turn 3, out of interceptor corner, that's my word for the day, the cavalcade, taking them up the Tygerberg straight towards turn number 4, the saddle sweep. Down the back straight, the safety car leads them. Eric Salomon is in that group going down that back straight. And the rest of them are busy just following the safety car. Francois, towards the checkered flag. Not quite the way we want to end this one, but yeah, it is what it is.
I don't have any wanton at this moment in time, to be quite frank with you, but yeah, a safety car deployed and they finish under the lights, as they say. That is the nature of the game. It is, in fact, believe it or not, for the safety of the drivers themselves. So the safety car will come over the line and they would have to do another lap, as they will have to meet the checkered flag. So people not at home, perhaps not understanding that are not aficionados or not real motorsport junkies, the safety car will bring them over the line and then they will work their way back to Park Vermey to go and park their cars. Well, the weather conditions remaining much the same. It's still pretty wet out there. I will have to see what the two-wheeled fraternity are going to do, and we're going to have to wait for that pole beam of Francis Carruthers to be brought back in once all the cars have passed him.
Right, the checkered flag has come out, and effectively this race has run its course. Davy Hubert, Gary Kieswetter, Steve Humble, followed by Yanni Hatzi, Divan Lasmore, Sandro Bakari. That is your first 6 cars out there. And then Jaco Lambert in the Nash. He entered in Class X. He will finish there in that 7th position.